Welcome to Stemiverse podcast episode 48. In this episode, Peter and Marcus talk with Kurt Young. Kurt is a product manager of an Australian educational technology startup company, Actura. Actura provides leading STEAM learning solutions spanning from in-class to out-of-class environments. Kurt grew up in China and settled down in Sydney after completing his commerce degree in Macquarie University. He then commenced his banking career in Commonwealth Bank of Australia, CBA, shortly after graduation while completing his Masters of Applied Finance at Macquarie University. During the 8.5 years Kurt worked in CBA, he gradually developed enormous passion for technology innovation and product management. That led him to join Cuscal and help implement Android Pay and Apple Pay digital wallet solutions for 30 to 40 domestic banks and credit unions across Australia. After the successful launch of these two products, Kurt moved on to an exciting new challenge, which is the development of Actura's FlipRobot. Kurt is determined to make a difference in the STEAM education industry by creating accessible and affordable educational robotic learning solutions with solid curriculum and teaching implementation support. This is Stemiverse podcast episode 48. Stemiverse is a podcast produced by Tech Explorations. Our mission is to help educators become awesome at teaching STEM, be it at home or in the classroom. Whether you are a professional or casual teacher teaching in a classroom or a parent or caretaker teaching at home, this podcast brings you the knowledge and experiences of practitioners, academics, entrepreneurs, and lifelong learners who are passionate about education and strive every day to help our children prepare for life in a world of radical change and, why not, abundance. Marcus, welcome back.
Thank you, Peter.
To the studio.
How are you today?
I'm good, thanks. Apart from a bad hair day that I was talking about earlier, I really need a haircut. It's ridiculous. Too busy though. What about you?
Yeah, much the same. I also need a haircut.
You had a busy week and a busy last week.
Secret projects, yes.
Yeah, secret projects plus EduTech, which is kind of the big event here in Australia.
Yeah, I got to see some of your fans at EduTech.
Oh, don't say that.
It was great.
Yeah. No, we met a lot of really interesting people there. We had really good discussions. I like that. Once a year, it's a good place to go and get the vibe of where education is going. See people being very excited. A lot of kids.
Yeah, it's great fun and lots of great contacts.
Yeah. And who do we have with us today?
So today we have got Kurt Young.
Hey, Kurt. Welcome.
Hi, guys.
How are you today?
Very well. It's Friday, so I can't complain.
It's Friday, yeah. Fridays for me actually very busy. I wonder why.
Yeah.
Podcast. I've got a podcast. Yeah. What are you up to these days?
Yeah. So just for your listeners as well. So my name's Kurt. I'm the product manager for a local STEAM education startup company called Actura. So been very busy with coming out of this STEAM education solution, FlipRobot. So that's what I've been working on lately.
Yeah. So you've got experience in basically creating educational technology, and for me that was a big incentive of us. That's why we asked you to be with us and talk about educational technology. You've got other experiences in the past that I'd like to tap into as well.
Definitely.
And just to get started and to put us in context, would you like to spend a few minutes to tell us a bit about your background and eventually what brought you to where you are now, so in the education space and building amazing products for educators?
Definitely. I think it might last slightly longer than a few minutes because both my personal and also my professional journey has been quite an interesting one. So if you have the time, I could expand it just a little bit.
Absolutely, yes. We want to build your profile, so go for it.
Thank you, Peter. So I was actually born and raised in China and went through their whole entire K-12 system I guess you could say I was the typical victim of the traditional knowledge teaching centric and also exam results driven type of education system.
I feel you, Kurt.
So you know exactly what I'm talking about.
And where in China, Kurt?
In Tianjin, which is about an hour drive from Beijing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a big city. And I still remember, back in the primary school days, I was just that little chubby, joyful little kid. Everyone loved in my class, full of creativity, bright ideas, really motivated to learn as well. But I think as a result of that, I actually did quite well in my kind of a junior high school entrance exam. So in China, when you going from primary school to junior high, you have to do this national exam. And same thing when you're going to senior high as well as university. So I did quite well, went to one of the top junior high schools in my hometown in Tianjin. But when I went there, it was a totally different notch comparing to my primary school years. And I was definitely underprepared. And it was really sort of a difficult adjustment period for me. I couldn't make a lot of friends. And also, unfortunately, I picked up some pretty bad stuttering habits along the way, which didn't help either. Pretty much halfway through my junior high, we were basically in this really overwhelming war zone prep mode to prepare for the high school entrance exam. It was just exams after exams, mock exams, and I lost my motivation to learn and study along the way. So as a result of that, I actually did terribly in my high school entrance exam. So luckily, my parents they put a few strings, got me into one of the good high schools in my city. But even that, I think, because if you think junior high is very competitive in China, until you get into high school, it was fierce and sometimes it's even ruthless. So every students are for themselves, and everyone the own goal they have is to make sure they have good marks and prepare well for their uni entrance exam. And because they felt that's their golden ticket to successful career and life afterwards. For me personally, I was really never in it. I think I checked out mentally at a quite early stage of my high school years. And that's when I slowly actually developed enormous interest into the Western culture. So through rock and roll music and movies. So in fact, that's how I got my English name, Kurt.
I wanted to ask you about that. Yeah, tell us about it.
Yeah, Kurt from Kurt Cobain, Nirvana.
Yes.
I was a diehard fan of Nirvana for many, many years. So
was that you or your dad?
Sorry, what?
Was that you influenced by Western music, or was it your father perhaps?
Oh, it's me. It's me.
You picked your name and you called yourself Kurt as your English name.
Exactly. So I had my own Chinese name, which my parents gave it to me. But I don't know if you know, I think a lot of Chinese here, especially the one came from China, they got English name, they all give to themselves. So in my case, I gave Kurt to myself, which is a fairly unique name and been, using that until now.
It is unusual, yeah.
It is.
Great. So we are now at high school. It is like a jungle, the way you describe it, right? Everybody for themselves. And you checked out, I think that's something important since we're talking about education. You checked out. Was it common, like with other students at the school feeling in a similar way about education?
Yeah, it's like that. It's basically I guess you can say two tiers. So there's the tier where, like me, I did well in the early years, but then later on I checked out for various reasons. But there are other students, if they they remain very competitive and locked in, they just be at a sort of really top level. So they could have gone to the really good universities, and I just went to that way. But either way, I think the point I'm trying to make is throughout the studies, I think none of us really know what we're doing. So even if we were studying, but we were studying for the exams, after exams we pretty much forgot most of the things we actually studied. So you don't feel like you actually study for a purpose. You just to get into the good school, good university. And to me, it doesn't have much meaning to it. And so back to the story I was saying earlier. So no surprise, I did actually pretty bad in my uni entrance exam. And that's when I told my parents of my intention to study abroad, because of my interest in the foreign culture and everything. But it actually turned out to be the best decision I have personally ever made, because it's changed my life, frankly. So I went to Auckland in New Zealand to study uni there first and continue my bachelor in commerce and also master's in applied finance in Macquarie Uni here. Basically, throughout my uni studies here and also in New Zealand, I participated in various volunteer projects, got involved heavily in a lot of social clubs activities, cured my stuttering, which really I was very pleased about, became a tutor, established a Chinese Students Association for my master's program alumni, and also made heaps of friends. And also back in 2011, I even went on to one of this really famous Chinese dating TV show. It's called If You Were the One. I don't know if you guys seen. It's actually showing here on SBS2. I think every Friday or Thursday night. Yeah. So that was a.
Was it successful?
Unfortunately, no. It was a bit dramatic. I mean, I think when I went onto the stage, it was really good, but the way I left the stage was a bit dramatic, unfortunately.
So we are at university at the moment. Has at this point your love and interest for education and learning reversed? So at this point, did you start wanting to learn again?
Yeah, definitely. I'll give you an example, Peter. So when I first went to Auckland, I studied at AUT, Auckland University of Technology. So that was back in like early 2000s, 2002 probably. I can't remember the exact 2 or 3. At the time, I think that's probably one of the first unis they are adopting this new methodology. Basically, for the first year, there's like a core subjects, generally about 8 subjects in that first year. What they have done is they combined them into 4 core discipline subjects. So for example, there's one subject called a small business management. So within that, you basically incorporate accounting, marketing, finance, and all different sort of business-related disciplines into that one subject. And throughout the subject, the key sort of project or the key string to put everything together, it's basically we form in teams and we have to actually do or create a small business. And a small business needs to hopefully be profitable. We're actually selling real stuff. It's almost like nowadays, you can actually establish the startup and really do it. And through doing it, and then you can actually, practice all different disciplines you can learn. That was fantastic. To me, that was eye-opener. I did that for about a year and a half. I really loved down there. But I think my family wanted me to come to Sydney, to Australia, because I have relatives here. So to be honest, I actually missed Auckland quite a bit because of that. I had a lot of good memories down there.
What business did you make?
So the 4 of us, we made this business. We make fish curries. Fish curry balls. So basically you put, those little fish curry balls onto a skewer, and then you dip into fish curry and you sell them in the markets, on Saturdays, Sundays. So that's the little business we did at the time. And it was actually quite profitable. Yeah, we actually made some money.
So did you go through the stages of setting up a business plan and then finding investors?
God, I hope they didn't make the business plan.
Or did you just go straight into the market and?
No. So we actually did, obviously back then the whole startup model is different from, quite different from now. So we didn't have funding, but then, we were just sort of we did market research in terms of, which area and what type of food and everything it's suitable. Yeah, we actually did quite a lot of preparation work, and throughout that project, we were using the things we learned in class to apply to our small business management, and it turned out to be a very useful learning journey.
So you come to Sydney. What do you do next?
So I got to Sydney, I studied in Macquarie bachelor's, and then I studied master's as well. So a lot of study. In the meantime, I did other part-time jobs and here and there, which also been very useful. Just build up my skill sets and build up my confidence. I think after I graduate, actually, while I was studying, I became a tutor. I think that's probably when I also had sort of this passion, or had that sort of initial passion for education. I never done any tutoring before, But when I was tutored at Macquarie, apparently I did a quite good job because the feedback I was getting was phenomenal. Like people were saying, "Wow, you're such a good teacher. You should just keep doing this." So I think that's how I initially discovered my fund for education.
What did you teach?
There was two subjects I taught. One is I think was accounting system management. The other one is management accounting. So there's two subjects.
What did you enjoy about that kind of teaching kind of job? What aspect of it did you enjoy the most?
I think to me, it's about the joys of sharing. So the ability to share, even if I might not know a lot, but the things I know well and the things I reckon that actually would add value to my students, just the ability to share with them. And then once I share with them, they use it to apply to their studies and actually do really well in their studies. That's gave me so much joy. Yeah.
It's a lot of people say that in education. I actually read an article, a small article a few days ago, because one of the things that I find that all teachers really enjoy doing is that sharing.
Seeing their success.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, totally agree.
So eventually you graduate, right, with your love for education restored.
Yes, that is correct.
That is a big milestone, isn't it? I feel a lot like you. Like I went through a very similar phase through school and university, especially school. And then eventually I came out the other way, in a way transformed thanks to other intermediate experiences similar to yours, like the project-based learning in university and all that. So what happens once you graduated? What's the next step for you?
So that's where I sort of begin my professional career life. And it hasn't been a smooth sailing either. So I think straight after I graduated, very similar to many uni graduates, after hundreds of job application rejections, I was finally lucky enough to be offered a phone-based sort of front office role at CommSec. CommSec is a sort of a share trading
securities.
Securities.
For our international listeners, could you tell us what that is?
Definitely. So CommSec is a both retail and also wholesale share trading arm of Commonwealth Bank, which is one of the big four banks in Australia.
Right.
And I was doing this phone-based sort of front office role, helping retail mom and dad customers do trades, but basically buy sell shares. It's kind of like a stockbroker, but we don't give a lot of advices. We help them to execute trades. I will give them marketing information and help them to basically do a lot of account management related work as well. But not long after I got onto the role, GFC happened as a global financial crisis. So that was an interesting period because just by watching, tens or hundreds of those mom and dad investors got their life savings and investments got cut in half or even more, it was devastating. It was brutal. Yeah. And I think that's from that moment, that's when I realized finance or investments can be, that's the dark side of it. They can be quite harsh. And as a result of the GFC, there was basically no job opportunity movements within the business for probably 2 to 2.5 years. And so during that period, I was basically just sort of, just pay my dues and really try hard to learn all different sort of skills and everything that I required on the job. Later on, I got some opportunity to change around among a few different front office roles on other products like margin lending, CFDs and a few other derivative products within CommSec. But I think for me, my real sort of work interest into technology truly began when I took on the institutional account management role for CommSec's white label solution. So just for your listeners, the white label solution, I think is very similar to a lot of other technology companies like ClickView and a few other ones. So they all have white label solutions as well. Even YouTube would have it. So it's basically utilizing CommSec's the share trading platform and white label that into other companies like Westpac Securities or some other financial institutions. So I was basically given the opportunity to get involved in a large number of major projects, such as the platform migration, building the white label share trading mobile apps, and also the white label website major function changes and additions. So through that, I got involved in a lot of IT projects. They all sort of relate to what I do as a kind of, you can say, a business owner or a product owner / the product owner type of roles. I started to really learn a lot of whether it's IT technology or finance technology related, like this sort of modules and terminologies, which I really enjoyed doing as well.
I guess up to this point, Kurt, what I see as a pattern from the story that you're telling us is that of a kid that basically lost his love for learning early on in school because of the system and the way that it was operating, and then found it a little bit later thanks to a few perhaps good choices that you made, like leaving home, for example, and traveling overseas. And then in your early career, the restored love for learning and education served you well because you had to go through quite a few different opportunities that you were able to take on and exploit in a way because you were open to learning new things. Is that a fair summary?
Yes, definitely, Peter. That's definitely a fair summary. And
I feel that this is something that like pretty much everybody who wants to be successful in a world that is dominated by change, like it was the GFC was a big one in your career, but things like that happen in almost every industry. Like we hear a lot about Adelaide losing car manufacturing jobs, and everybody's very upset about that, but that's a big change.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yep.
So how did that all prepare you or perhaps led you to where you are now, where you actually are building educational products?
Definitely. Just right before we get onto our current educational role, I think after I was doing that, so like I was in that role, the institutional account management role for about 4 to 5 years, I think. That's really sort of helped me to set the foundation for my future technology sort of orientated roles. I think the next role I found was basically working a company. This is actually quite a unique role as well, but it was more like a contract role that's for short term. So basically, it's a payment company that was launching Apple Pay and Android Pay for the very first time in Australia. So the company, we were basically working with Apple, working with Google, working with Visa, MasterCard, and all the banks. Not the big fours, but mainly, credit unions and small banks like CUA and, ING, those types. And we were launching about 30 or 40 of them for the very first time in Australia. They were actually doing that even prior to ANZ was the first, but because the other big three didn't do it.
American Express was the first.
Yes, my apologies. Amex is the first, but as you know, they're not a bank, so so it really depends on how you want to categorize.
I had to go out of my way to get an Amex card so I could use Apple Pay.
I actually did the same as well. Yeah.
It's a draw card.
Yeah, I did the same thing, but mainly for testing purpose. It was different. So that was really fun. Yes, I did that for about 6 months to a year. Really fun projects, and to me, working with people in Apple and in Google was very interesting because, for example, 10 o'clock in the morning, I could have a meeting with Apple, and 12:30, I have a meeting with Google. And the style of people working in the two companies, they are almost on the two ends of the spectrum, if that makes sense.
I can just imagine the length of the NDAs and non-disclosure agreements that you had to sign.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. It's funny how, it is like that sometimes. You just have to bear the secrets and try to, so many bubbles in your head.
And it must have been a very intense period because 30 or 40 entities that you had to work with, plus these large organizations, plus brand new technology.
Yeah, exactly.
Plus, I suppose, changing people's habits when it comes to paying for bills. There's quite a few things happening there.
It was very hectic, yeah. But I mean, after we'd done it all, I personally felt, I actually done something for the very first time in Australia, and also probably in the world. Haven't got many countries done that. So I actually felt really good about it. Actually, even when I was doing that, I felt... So I knew more and more clearly in terms of what I want to do. So I do want to develop new products, the products that actually can make a difference to the society. So I think that's how I kind of helped me to land the current role, which is the product management role in this, we are a STEM education company, Actura. So, I just want to give you guys, I guess, just quick introduction of the company, if that's okay.
Yeah. So we are now at present, you're working at Actura, which is a startup in the education space.
Something steampunk?
Based in Sydney.
That is correct.
Steampunk? Something? What's it, steam?
Okay. Yeah. Kurt, take it away.
You mean STEM, right?
Yes. So I mean, like when I first started, I always use STEM, but then within the business, I think we try to be consistent, so we try to use STEAM. So obviously, as you guys know, so STEAM is STEM with the A. So A is arts, but in my mind, it's more design. So to me, I love design. Actually, I love the whole design thinking process and, the whole entrepreneurial sort of design thinking process. I love everything about it. I think to us, STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. So Actura is a STEAM-focused company, focused on really helping youngsters or helping children to build their future career success by helping them to master their STEAM skills. So there's two sides of the sort of a product or service we do here. So on my end, so I look after the FlipRobot, which is the in-class educational robotics solution. And we also have an out-of-class solution, which is the Space School, Space School program. So basically taking local kids to USSRC or Johnson Space Center in Houston.
Sorry, did you say USSRC?
That is correct, yes.
What is that?
In Huntsville, in Alabama.
So it's the United States RC, so a robotics competition, is that correct?
Oh, no.
So just the acronyms I'm not familiar with.
I don't know exactly what a USSRC stands for. I think it's probably US Space Center or something. But basically, it's the Space Center based in Alabama, Huntsville.
Yes, got it. The US Space and Rocket Center.
Yes.
USSRC, yeah. So that is, there's a website, rocketcenter.com, and they are based in Huntsville, Alabama.
That's right, yes.
And there's a space shuttle on its rockets.
So they got one of the space shuttles.
So tell us what's happening there. And how do kids go there? How do they get involved with you? How do they qualify or, end up in Alabama?
So currently the way we've been doing is we've been approaching a lot of schools. So the business Actura established back in 2014. They actually started to do the Space School program. I think that side of the business has been running really successfully over the last 4 years. So we currently have a network, I would say more than 200 schools across Australia and also in New Zealand as well. So schools is, basically we run information evenings and we go there, talk to parents, talk to students, talk to the school teachers and principals, really get them to involved and, see their interest. And if they are, then obviously they contact directly to our staff. So we have our own support team, our account management team to help them to facilitate this overall process. So everything is done in-house. We also have operations team here locally. Actually, in fact, I'm going in July. So I think 1st of July, that's our next expedition. So I'm very excited. So I'll be going, helping them, doing a lot of operations support work and, helping them to do a lot of support activities.
So a school would need to be, I suppose, a customer or to have a membership?
Oh, no. So
Actura?
it's basically the relationship with students or parents directly. So the way school get involved is, for example, if you are one of the school like a Barker or a Knox, so sometimes they also because, for example, Knox could have or Barker could have, like, say, 50 students or 100 students going in this July. And if they do, the school, obviously, they want to make sure their students looked after. So they could actually send maybe one or two of their own teachers to come along the journey to making sure everything's, worked as their expectation. So we could facilitate that as well. So a lot of times the school involved is, their teachers get, going on the tour, and also they want to make sure everything's, all done to their expectations. So, but for your listeners, if any parents that are interested into attending the Space School, I think the best thing to do is go onto our website, which is actura.com.au. So that's actura.com.au. They got all the information, contact details on the Space School side of things.
That's great. So anybody can. You don't need to be affiliated with a particular school. We can do it as a private person and student.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think currently for schools, we try to group them to, for example, if a Barker or Knox or some schools, they have large number of students going, and we group them together. But for individual ones, we could also do some grouping as well. So there's different ways we can, facilitate that.
So tell us what happens once a student makes a trip to Alabama, and you're there now. You're at the space school. What happens once you get there? How long does it last for? What do you learn, or what experience do you take with you in Australia?
I'll try the best I can to tell you more about this bit, but because I work on the FlipRobot side of things, but I'm very excited to go in July to check it out. So from my understanding is, so it's going for 2 weeks, basically the beginning of July to all the way mid-July. That's the junior space school program. And in December, there's another 2 weeks right before Christmas as the senior space school program. So for July, during the 2 weeks program, so they will, I think, either the first or second, depending on which group you're in, you will be in maybe Houston Johnson Space Center first. And then the other week, you will be in USSRC, doing different activities. So some examples, like I believe there was one in... was Johnson Space Center or another venue, they do like a shark dissection. That was really cool. I saw the video they were putting on, and through the shark dissection, they try to understand the sort of micro mechanisms involved in the organs, everything. So from a space perspective, a lot of times kids thinking, it's more just to understand the gravity and a lot of other STEM stuff. But biology is actually a big part of that kind of a space operation type of things as well.
Yeah, well, it sounds like an amazing experience. Like, do you take adults? Or do I have to be a kid?
No, actually, you know what? With all seriousness, so for anyone that interested in to participate for adults, so we also have what we call group managers and group assistants. So people that, in your case, if you have like some sort of a science interest or science background or technology background that interested in participating, you could be participating as a as a group manager. Basically, you will be the person looking after 14 or 15 kids. If that's something you're happy to do.
Doesn't that sound like fun?
I'm used to it.
For 2 weeks.
Yes.
So
with my kids, it feels like they're 10 or 20. They're just too bad.
Yeah, so
that's awesome. Yeah.
So that's that.
Now you got me thinking. Kurt, I'm going to get back to you on that. How about we switch to robots now?
So
because I know that you're Marcus, you got to...
Yeah, sorry, I was just jumping in. My brain is like on fire today. Sure. I was going to ask, so why do we need another STEM robot?
FlipRobot, there you go.
That's a very good question. I was waiting.
This is called a segue. We can do these segues. It's great.
Because we need more robotic explorers in space. Yes. How about that?
That's very good. Sorry, Kurt, go on.
Yeah, to answer your question, Marcus, I think we all know in recent years there has been a lot of, I think initially there was Lego and Bex, right? And there was so many different brands came out in the last couple of years. I think everyone's trying to get onto this trend and trying to get involved. I think for us, the reason why we created this solution, we don't call it as a product, but we call this the STEM education solution, because we felt the way we create this whole thing is very different from others. So I don't want to say other people is not good, we're good, but I just want to focus on our solution. So the way we create the solution is so we felt the things we're creating is not just the hardware and software. It has to be almost like an ecosystem that you provide to the school, that school teachers and school students can pick it up and easily implement it in class with almost like hassle-free or just very easily just take it on board. And also that true learning outcomes and the stuff that they have to learn, I think they can easily get out of from your solution as well. So with that basically means you need to have the hardware, the software, the curriculum, the professional development support, and also probably that local support as well from a relationship and other ongoing operation support perspective. So I think that overall kind of a ecosystem solution, if you can try to put them together well and offer them to schools, I think that's going to really make a difference. Where in some cases or some providers, if you have hardware and software, and maybe you write some curriculum afterwards and give to schools, and also if there's not enough PD support or that sort of support supplied, school can only feel like, okay, it looks like a good product, but I'm not just sort of playing this at home. We're actually teaching this in class. So if you're thinking from the end user, the teacher's perspective, they really need to be able to implement your solution with ease. I think that's probably where it set us apart, because like we with our solution, the curriculum was designed first, and then the robot was kind of created, in conjunction with the curriculum, and the curriculum got the teaching resources the teacher can use, like PowerPoints in class, and also got a program design, kind of like lesson plans, and also the learning, activities, learning sheets. So it's basically, if teacher needs to, they can basically just use the material, teaching class straight away without having to do a lot extra curriculum design work and other work as well.
Right. So if I understand right, you started this project by creating the curriculum first, and then you moved on to the technology part as something that will assist the teacher to teach the curriculum, right? You didn't start with the robot in mind first.
That is correct, yes. Yeah, so the curriculum side of things, so this come to another organization called CASE. So CASE stands for California Association of STEM Education. It's based in Cupertino in US. So they are a non-for-profit organization. So they initially had designed the curriculum, but on a rather high level with the sort of this, what we call 30 design, sort of a curriculum design philosophy, and some of the sort of, from a robotic education perspective, some of the key disciplines involved. And because the way, like obviously you have the curriculum, but you can't implement it without whether it's a robot or some other tools to implement it. So that's how we work together to see how we can basically fit FlipRobot into the curriculum and try to work together. And because we're a startup company, when we're creating the product, the actual physical product, the starter kit or extensions, the curriculum can be sort of improved at the same time. So it's actually worked in conjunction to each other, if that makes sense. Yeah.
So it's not the Australian curriculum, it's a curriculum
it's an
created
international
by an organization in Cupertino.
That is correct. So the initial curriculum is an international curriculum, but we have also done a lot of localization work here as well. So, just making sure that it complies with Acura standards and also the different state-by-state standards as well. So, there's a lot of localization work has been done over the last year.
How did you go through the process of localizing content from overseas and making it relevant to Australian teachers?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So within our business, we actually have people who were teacher before as well. So, they taught before, so they understand how to do the curriculum mapping, what type of activities that's required. So we actually have people done that initial round. And also even me personally, I also got involved in helping some of that part as well from a technical standpoint. And also to answer your question, Marcus, we currently have an advisory board of 30 schools across Australia. So they're currently reviewing our curriculum. So for example, we've done that initial round of localization. So we would give it to them. So they would basically just review them or maybe try it out in some small sample classes and everything, give us feedback so we can actually further improve it from that perfecting that localization perspective. Yeah.
Cool.
I always wonder, why are robots dominating education? Like, we know they're going to take over the world at some point.
Why are we helping them?
Why are we now getting them in charge of our children's education? So, Kurt, since you are building one, why are robots so popular in education? What is it about them that make them such a versatile tool?
Okay. I think to answer your question, Peter, putting kids aside, even for adults, I'll take me as example. Me, for someone that actually not from a technical background. So I think, just to be honest, I actually, prior to this, I actually learned some HTML, CSS. That's probably as much as I know about coding. I'm just a bit...
Is that a programming language, Marcus? HTML?
What do you say? It's a schema?
Let's say it is, yes. Actually, HTML, especially CSS, is really, I think, Turing complete, right? So you can say it's a programming language.
You could actually say, yeah. Yeah, sure.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sure.
Okay, if it doesn't count, then I don't know any. So, yeah. So come back to that. I think, while I was, going through our own, product development journey, the curriculum and everything, I was actually even learning myself as well. So actually, I felt throughout this work, I actually learned a lot, me personally. And I think one of the key reasons I felt I actually got the motivation to learn was the ability to, if I program the robot using, say, our current Flip code environment, which is a customized version of Blockly Juno, I can actually see how that works on the robot straight away. And then I would assume if it didn't work as the way I want it to be, I can go back to my code and then I can make changes and see that work straight away again. I think to me that's really kind of aligned with the modern entrepreneurial or this kind of a startup mentality. You're talking about, like rapid prototyping, and you basically you have a hypothesis, and then you test really quickly. And if it doesn't work, and you go back to your hypothesis again and try to change it and try to do that
I
testing.
see. So if you do that in quick succession, so you don't have to wait like for a long time to test your hypothesis. If you can speed things up, then your learning becomes faster, of course, and less. What's a startup word? Frictionless.
Lean
It becomes frictionless.
Continuous integration.
Exactly. Yeah. So from that perspective, I think that's one big sort of learning students and even me can get out from that, because once our students in the 21st or 22nd century, when they go on to workforce, hopefully become job creators, I think if they're the entrepreneurs, they have to have that skills, that sort of that design thinking skills, that ability to do rapid prototyping. And on the other end is the ability just to see how your code actually, able to create something or solve a problem in real life. Yeah. To me, I think if you do work in HTML or in the design game, which is great as well, but if you see something like work in real life, lifting a box or doing something that actually can physically make changes or actually create value or do something, I think to me or to kids, to everyone, I think it's actually, you have that greater sense of achievement, and that greater sense of achievement would drive you to actually to motivate you to learn more from a coding or STEAM education perspective. Yeah.
So the robot would give a tool that would engage children because of the quick interaction and feedback that the child will get from the robot. Like when we say feedback, we're talking about movement, lighting up, noise, sensors and things like that provide instant feedback, and it prompts the student to do the next thing and try something else and try again. Basically, it never ends, right? Unlike a textbook where eventually it's going to end, and probably you'll be relieved that it did end. So from your experience with education robots and talking to a lot of teachers and yourself being a student as well, what are the attributes of a good educational robot? What should a teacher be looking for when they're making a choice, since there are so many here?
Yeah, so I think the number one sort of, I can't say rule, or you can say like it's a sort of a guideline or principle, will be they need to be flexible enough to really foster students' creativity. So I really don't like robots that, basically they already kind of tell you exactly this is it, this is the way to assemble this, and there's no way you can change it. That flexibility that you can basically assemble your robot in different ways and also actually plug in different things. So in saying that, preferably if your robot from a both hardware and software perspective, they're open source, I think that's probably even better.
Why is that important?
So the reason why it's important, probably when you're young in primary school, it might not be that important. But once you get to a certain age, say in, like junior or senior high, and you really want to solve more complex problem and everything, I think having that kind of an open source based hardware and software, you would have the capability to just do a lot more with your robot. So you can basically go on to open market. You can source different, take Arduino, for example, you could source different Arduino compatible hardwares to basically sky's your limit in terms of what you can do with your robot. And from a software perspective, if it's open source, most likely it's compatible with other software as well. So you could actually build based on that to actually further extend your learnings. So
it's like open source. Sorry, Marcus.
I was going to say, some cynics would say that startups use open source hardware to get a foothold in the market, and then when it's not competing, backpedal. I'm thinking about the Makey, for example, which was built on the open source Arduino and leveraged the open source side of things. And then when they finally had success in the market, they decided not to go open source and no longer open source their hardware and software.
We should probably explain what open source is.
Yeah, what is open source, and I guess what is open source hardware? Because that's I guess between the two relatively new.
Would you like to take that?
Okay.
Oh, we are interviewing you, so maybe you should answer the question.
Yeah, answer.
Tell us, what is open source?
I actually got a feeling that I'll try the best I could explain it. But I felt probably either Peter yourself or Marcus will be the better person to explain this. But I'll try the best I could.
Give you a best shot.
Yeah. So it's my understanding of open source hardware is sort of a hardware, especially the microcontroller, the MCU. Is so it's basically it can be compatible with many other open source, whether it's the sensors or gadgets that you're able to actually make them work together. So so take Arduino for example. It's a great example like of open source hardware. Basically, for Arduino, they have different types of MCUs, and on top of that, you can basically plug in all different type of compatible or Arduino compatible open source hardwares or sensors. So by doing that, students can really foster their creativity. So when they been faced different kind of problems and challenge, they can basically just thinking, what can I do? What type of things I can put on to solve this problem? I think in my mind, having that kind of a creativity or flexibility, it's really going to help students to further enhance their problem solving, that type of skills.
Yeah. I'd add to that the term open source is used to indicate that a particular product or design is free for anyone to use. The Arduino that you mentioned is a very good example of hardware open source, where the schematic of how to build the Arduino board, so the Arduino Uno board, is available for anyone to download, and then you can go ahead and create your own Arduino board. Now that people do that on a breadboard, for example, it's also the reason why you can purchase an Arduino genuine board for $30, $40 and a copy or a clone for $5, right, Marcus?
Cheaper, yeah.
It's because the people that make that clone are able to use the research and design that the Arduino company has put in and create their own clone. But I think when it comes to education, the advantage of the open source option versus closed source is that the market is open to create a lot of compatible hardware that then things like sensors, motors, and hardware that you can plug into the original Arduino or component.
I would say continuity is the big one.
And continuity as well, yes.
So you
Safety,
buy
right?
a product, say from Lego, and then they decide to end of life it, you're out of luck. But if you buy from, say, an open source hardware, from an open source hardware company, there's nothing to stop you from going to another company and getting the hardware from them. Or if worst comes to worst, you can always go and make the hardware yourself.
So from a risk point of view as well, if you invest a lot in a particular educational tool, having it open sourced means that there will always be an alternative.
Yep. So Kurt, are you committing to open sourcing the FlipRobot and keeping it open sourced?
Yes, we are. I mean, the whole sort of design philosophy came about because, just give you a bit of a background in terms of how we came about to this whole thing. So initially, from a hardware perspective, so the company Actura, we actually merged with FlipRobot. So FlipRobot is a brand, is actually originated in Taiwan. So in Taiwan, there was this small group of university PhD students. They study in education and technology. So they were really passionate about. So they started off like doing maker stuff, and then really felt passionate about how we can use that maker style technology to change STEAM education. So that's how they started the FlipRobot business. But then Actura, at the time we were doing this out of class solution. We felt that could be a really good complement as the in-class solution to the overall business. So I think after the merger, we still felt the open source is definitely the way to go, because going forward, so the reason why we don't felt it's a threat, like what Marcus is saying about others could basically steal our client base, or they can just easily jump onto others. We don't feel like that necessarily is going to be the case. So the reason being is once we build this ecosystem, so we're talking about that ongoing curriculum support. So it's basically we keep improving the curriculum and everything, that local support and the professional development and that whole ecosystem. If we're able to just continuously improving it, I think even if others have like similar type of products from a hardware software perspective, but if they're not able to, constantly creating this kind of a best in-class solution to support teachers, I think we would still always going to have that competitive edge.
Yeah, and I agree with what you're saying, Kurt. And if you look at the history of open source, you can see that it's basically embedded in pretty much most successful products that we use every day, from the first web browser and web server to Linux, powers the whole internet. So there is something to be said about the strength of open source, both in hardware and in software, that makes products like that, live a very long, successful life and affect how other products end up being. Like the kind of they set the terms, whether it's education or business or just the internet and open market. There's something about open source.
Yeah.
And just to quickly add on to that, Peter, I think to us, like what we felt is the reason why we don't really sort of worry too much whether it's open source or not, because our focus actually is not on the robot, it's on education. So like we actually put more effort into designing the curriculum on educational side of things comparing to a lot of other vendors. So essentially, like what I'm trying to say here is, if you focus on education, today we could use this type of FlipRobot to deliver that. And tomorrow, if we have the next level of robot or some other form of robots or even something entirely different, it could still deliver that as well. So the essence is actually not just on the hardware or software. The essence is on the education outcome. How are you going to deliver that? So that's always been the top of our mind too.
Yeah.
Up until now, yeah.
So moving up to the altruistic side of things, what's your revenue model?
How do you make money?
Yeah.
How do you make money?
So the way we make money is definitely through the hardwares. So we don't really charge our clients anything on the software, the curriculum side of things. But for professional development, we also have our own kind of a NISTA certified PD program at the moment. But for the current schools that actually adopting our solutions, we basically just sort of just doing it for free for them for now. But on ongoing basis, we might look into charging for some of those PD services.
Okay. Right. How are you planning to scale?
So scaling wise, I mean, in Australia, I think we are in a fairly good place because we already have this large network of 200 plus schools we're trying to approach. But at the same time, we are definitely trying to work with our channel partners, whether it's through third-party training organizations or even yourself, Marcus. We're trying to approach various channels, really helping us to get into the school system. So our main approach at the moment is definitely we try to work with schools on a B2B type of business model. We don't want to put too much focus on the retail side of things. And also globally, the product already been tested fairly successfully in Taiwan. So in Taiwan, we also have some local operations team and sales team down there. So they've been really helping us to branch out in that area really well. And also we recently set up our New Zealand operations there. So I think down their end, it's also going to help us to branch. And also because we have two services, basically the space school and also the robot side of things. So either one of them pick up, it's definitely going to help our other business to grow as well.
Okay, awesome. So you guys are a relatively small startup.
Yes.
Do you have a Goliath with a target on its back that you want to hunt down and kill? So I'm thinking about
zero-sum game.
No. I think it's always good for a small startup to have, I want a nicer word for enemy, but an enemy. Like if you think about Basecamp back in the day, the project management software, their big enemy was Microsoft and Microsoft Project.
Yep.
And there's many instances of small startups having
a rival, I'd say.
The Goliath rival.
The thing that
you want to be
you...
the anti-thing. Do you want to be the anti-Lego? Do you want to be the anti... I don't know.
Be bold.
Me personally, I think the market is big enough to accommodate all of us in the moment. But if you really want to have to put a particular a competitor, as our sort of, like that type of a comparison, I would say maybe Mbot or MakeBlock. But I mean, MakeBlock actually run very different kind of a business model from us. So from a business model or from this kind of a strategy point of view, I think we run very differently. So that's why I actually don't really view them as our threat, because I think they are relatively more maker focused. We are 100% school education focused. So
yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, I agree with you. I think the market is not just a big place, but it's also a good place to try a lot of alternatives. And there's always going to be a bunch of people that like you versus the others, which is what happened with Basecamp, right? Well, Basecamp does have, did build a good
They built a good product. They built less.
but it's definitely not Microsoft. So it's a micro niche.
They're doing quite well in that market niche. Yes.
No, I use them. And
Actually, we use them, don't we?
Yeah. From my experience last week at EduTech, I saw a lot of humanoid robots.
Yeah.
Little tiny robots about 20 centimeters high. One of them was actually advertised as a study assistant. I thought, study assistant? Like, seriously, what? How can it assist you in studying? Like,
stick Google
your homework?
Yeah.
Anyway, but humanoid robots seem to be the next thing, perhaps, or could be a fad, like I'm just not sure.
Just to extend on Peter's point about the humanoid robot. So our current robot selection, is basically for the first year, which is kind of like year 7 to 8 level. We have the kind of a starter kit and 4 different type of extensions or variations, and they could come up with. But for the second year ones that we currently already kind of in the prototyping stage, which the production is going to be coming out very, very shortly. So those ones will have also our version of the humanoid robot, but they're probably not as sophisticated as the ones you see in the EduTech. But I think from a learning perspective, it's definitely gonna have, because this is where we come from. When we design our robot, it's actually purely from a learning perspective. So what kind of from a robotic learning perspective do you need? So we design fit for purpose and to keep the price at a sort of affordable level. So those are coming up very, very shortly. So once they do, I'll definitely share with you guys as well.
Just in closing, I've got on this segment, I'd like to say that I don't trust a robot if I can't see the servos and the motors inside. And a lot of the robots that I saw at EduTech were all like covered.
I'd say retail robots.
Yeah, they're more like toys. All the plastics, plastic shell covering all the internal components. That is definitely, in my opinion, when it comes to education, it's a no-no. You want the internals to be exposed.
I was at a Sphero briefing, and it was all on D&D, but they said a big change in their business came when they made the shell of the Sphero. Instead of having it internally painted white, they made it clear so you could see the components on the inside.
Yeah.
It's just like an iMac.
Exactly. Yeah. Anyway,
I totally agree with that. Yeah, for our one, I think it's definitely transparent because there's nothing covered on top of it, and in fact, you could assemble that in different ways as well. So once I have the prototype, I'll probably get a chance to show you guys, and you will know exactly what I mean.
So I was going to ask, as a, I guess, EduTech person in the EduTech space, look at us taking ownership of the EduTech word again.
Is it trademark?
I would be surprised.
When we say EduTech, we mean it's just short for educational technology, not the expo, right?
Yeah, kind of like make education.
We don't want to get sued.
There. So I was going to ask, was the conference EduTech or the expo EduTech worth it for you? And would you do it again, given the many tens of thousands of dollars a decent booth must cost to man? And
well, I mean, in my case, Mark, I don't know if you were, we actually didn't have a stand, so it was definitely worth for us. So we didn't have to spend a cent. So we were actually so basically, like, what we did was because I think we came late, so we actually didn't get a chance to have a stand this year. So what we did was I basically took our prototype and took a lot of our assembled products. So we went there. I think we spoke with, like in your case, we spoke with Maddie. We spoke with a lot of different channel partners and, and other organizations and people attending as well. I think...
So you were just crushing into the expo.
I love this gorilla.
I guess you can say that.
Gorilla.
It's a startup methodology.
I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a very good chance I think we will be having a stand next year. But this year, I think it actually worked out pretty well. So we'll see.
That's great.
I like your thinking. You're a man of my own heart.
So, rapid fire?
I think it's time to rapid fire it.
Marcus, you go first.
So who's been the most influential in shaping the way you sell?
No, you teach, Marcus. It says teach him.
Yeah, but he's not so I was going to say sell.
Okay, you adapt on the fly.
Yes.
Okay, let's go.
I think probably like either sell or teach might not be the best sort of description. I think probably the most influential person in my life in terms of, like to sort of get to where I am right now, I think it's my mom. So my mom, she was actually a school headmaster as well. So she's a school headmaster back in China. She's always been very have this like forward vision towards education. So she taught me a lot in terms of you should really looking forward, not just sort of stay where you are. Yeah. So that's why even when I was at the bank or doing different things, I was thinking, like what's gonna happen next, and where I should be, like what I should be doing to prepare for me in the next 5 or 10 years. Mm-hmm. So I think that's probably been very, very influential to me.
How did you react when you announced that you want to leave and go overseas?
She actually reacted surprisingly well. So my father was the one actually. He's saying, he wasn't so sure, and then he's such long way away. But mom, she was.
It's dangerous in New Zealand as well. It's really rough.
Yeah. So.
I'm kidding about that. It was a joke.
Okay.
Things can get shaky.
It's awesome. I love New Zealand. Yeah.
No. She was fine. Yeah. She's a great mom. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Oh, I can't say the same about Australia. Australia is rough. I'm joking about that too. But yeah, it's great. Okay, next one. Kurt, so is there an application that helps you organize yourself every day that you can't live without?
An application. I mean,
It could be pen and paper.
Or a service. Could be Apple Pay, Android Pay.
It could be something like an Evernote.
So I actually use my Outlook a lot. So I actually use my Outlook to organize both my work and personal stuff as well. So I put calendars everywhere. I put and my task, basically work items. If I haven't done or something, I flag it as my task. So Outlook is my basically for both my. I probably shouldn't be using that much for my personal stuff, but I just felt like instead of having a different tool for your personal, it's just a lot easier that way. Just to flag everything. Yeah.
So iPhone or Android?
For me, I have to say, unfortunately, I'm a big iPhone fan. But I mean, might not necessarily a fan, but I'm just lazy, So for me, I just always been using iPhone, and I guess
But that's not lazy. That's smart.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, I just want to say that. All right, Marcus, take the next one.
I just did.
Oh, you did.
Have to do it again.
Okay, it's my turn. Kurt, what's your programming language of choice?
Oh, wow. That should be easy because I don't know many anyway. So at the moment...
You took one.
So at the moment, I guess you can say HTML. I've been doing a fair bit of HTML here and there.
I've got to say, sorry, Kurt, we are still undecided of whether there is a programming language.
It is.
I don't think it counts.
I double-checked. If you combine it with the CSS, it's Turing complete, but separately they are not.
Yes, it's a markup language. It's not programming language.
Okay, well...
But you are learning Blockly, right? Or block-based language. All right. You can start with that, and then you can move on to Ruby.
So you're doing RG Scratch, I would imagine, and
so right now I'm doing. So I already done quite a bit of a Blockly stuff, and I'm currently learning Arduino IDE at the moment. So so I've been doing a fair bit of IDE activities, which has been really fun.
There's a really good course on this.
Yeah, I already signed up Peter's one.
What are you talking about?
Was it? It was made by this company in Barara. Something about Arduino stepping forward. No.
TX Explorations, right?
Yeah.
Oh, he's talking about Arduino step by step.
Arduino step by step. Yes, that's the one.
Yeah, that's exactly what I've been doing. Yeah, that's exactly what I've been doing.
I like talking about
It's okay, Kurt. I know a guy who can get you a copy of it.
All right. Let's move on. I want to ask one more rapid fire question. Maybe Marcus, you can take it.
So, too many good questions, but I'm getting them highlighted for me. So, do you have any parting thoughts for our listeners? Any do's, don'ts, or lookouts? Any specific robots they should buy or not buy?
I think I would like I probably don't want to make any cheap shots here, but I think in terms of the overall, just after this whole year and a bit, I've been working in this company. What I felt is about this whole education, or this STEAM education field. Currently, it's been a very like uptrend market at the moment. There's a lot of players, and probably a lot of schools and parents, schools and teachers. They all like a bit confused in terms of what to take on or not. But to me, I think I'm actually very clear. So I'm thinking we are still improving, but ultimately what we want to do is, because the current market, the gap is basically, apart from the hardwares and software, it has to be easy to use and affordable. So definitely affordability, that's one key component in terms of this overall STEM education industry. And the second one is that curriculum support. And the third is that professional development support as well. To me, those three components, if any, whether you can say vendors or solution providers can do them well together, I think that's definitely would, give a lot of value to the schools, and school can easily implement those into their STEM courses or programs.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
I've got to say that I was thinking hard of whether I should invite you to the podcast. And I say that because,
Okay.
well, look, I've got to be upfront and very honest about this and speak out my mind. And the reason is that if you look at our lineup of guests so far, pretty much all of them are teachers or researchers, freelancers perhaps. So we haven't had somebody from a company who actually is building educational technology or products that we use and teachers use. My struggle was whether it would result in an episode that sounds like an infomercial. And I decided that we should have you on, definitely, because you are working on a technology or in an area that affects us as educators. And just like we have a professor on that is telling us about the latest research and the latest findings, we want to hear directly from the people that build these technologies that we use and teach our children. So for that reason, I decided that yes, having Kurt on is something that we must do, and we did, and there's going to be more.
I think we should have more business people.
Yes.
Like, honestly, they speak to more teachers and educators than you and I, and they get knowledge.
Absolutely.
About what their needs and wants are.
Yeah.
And we get to have this knowledge in a very distilled fashion and repackage it and send it out as a podcast.
Exactly.
Why would you not have them?
Yeah. And it's not just the fact that, Kurt and Actura are building educational hardware and products in general, but it's the business behind it. Like we talked about business models. That's not something that we talk about with educators normally, right? How economy works and how products are being built, all that is very important for the next generation and the generations after that. So we do live in an open market. This is something that we need to have ahead of us as educators to engage with. Kurt, just before we go, how can people get in touch with you, if you want them, of course, to get in touch with you?
So I think probably can either drop me an email to my kurt.young@actura.com.au. That's my work email. Or alternatively, you can look me up on LinkedIn, just Kurt Young. I think I have like probably nearly 2,000 connections on LinkedIn, and especially a lot of education related networks. So I think there's a very good chance that, I could be pretty just sort of on the top search results. So just look me up, and I'm on LinkedIn every day. So, if you send me an invite, I'll reply straight away.
Thank you, Kurt. Thank you.
Pleasure.
So thank you for making the time to talk to us about the amazing work that you do and your life story. Essentially, there's a lot more, obviously, behind the person. And we wish you a lot of success with the products. And I'm going to definitely have a look at your space program, because I think both my kids would be very excited to go to Alabama at some point.
Wow, definitely.
So, I would do it for them, right? For them. I'll do anything for them.
Gotcha.
Use the frequent flyer points somehow, right?
It's amazing. So thank you again.
That's my pleasure.
Have a good day.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Marcus. And we'll talk soon.
Thanks, mate. Bye.
That's all for this episode. The notes for this episode that include links to many of the resources mentioned and information on how to get in touch with Kurt are available on our website, techexplorations.com/p/Stemiverse. Each episode comes with its own page on the Tech Explorations website and a goldmine of information in the notes. This Stemiverse podcast episode was produced by Tech Explorations. Do you have any questions or suggestions? Would you like to nominate a friend or colleague to be our guest? Please email us at pa@texplore.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes by searching for the name of our podcast, Stemiverse. That's STEMIVERSE. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next time.